Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Life from the Wrist. Hope you guys are doing well today. I had to take a little bit of a break to sort of digest the news of the 5711 or the Tiffany-Blue 5711 that sold, was released and then sold at auction by Patek Philippe. It's a pretty significant historical moment in the history of Patek Philippe, in the history of watches, in the history of watch auctions, in the history of limited editions. It just goes really beyond just the one sale. And so after sort of digesting the news, all of the events that sort of took place, I thought I would put my thoughts in a video and discuss them with you guys in the comment section, and really just dive into what I think about the end of the 5711, the Tiffany-Blue 5711, and the auction price that this watch realized. I know that there's a lot of opinions out there about this piece, and I welcome you to leave them in the comments. I'd love to have a conversation with you about the result, because it really, like I said, it's a pretty historic moment. So to give you a little bit of background, the Patek Philippe, one of the Holy Trinity brands and one of the most recognizable, well-respected brands in the entire world, announced that they were discontinuing the 5711. This is a pretty big moment. 5711 is a really in-demand Nautilus that many people are still waiting to get their allocations for. And so when this happened, obviously secondhand prices for these pieces increased, and people were scrambling to try and get their 5711. On top of that, Terry Stern then announced that they were going to do some sort of release to end the 5711 with a bang, and what they decided to release was this, the watch that we're talking about for this video. It is a stainless steel 5711 with a Tiffany blue dial and a Tiffany signed dial. When you think about Patek Philippe, a lot of the times you don't think about these really bright, really eye-catching colors. A lot of it's very classic, and it's very similar to Rolex, where small iterations are made to their staple pieces, but they're not ones that are going to sort of, be too much for a consumer to take in, especially with sort of this winning formula that they have. So this is a very significant piece that Patek Philippe released. The watch itself, like I said, is Tiffany signed and is obviously a way to commemorate the end of the 5711, but it's also a way that they are commemorating the relationship between Tiffany Co. and Patek Philippe, Tiffany being a retailer and Patek Philippe being a watchmaker. They're celebrating 170 years of this partnership that has really become a really important part of watch collecting, whether that's on the modern or vintage side, and opened up the dual signed sort of market for these pieces that has become quite popular. Like I said, this is a 5711 stainless steel, your quintessential Patek Philippe, but has this really stark blue color. If you flip the watch over, what's really cool is it has an inscription on the case back that documents this 170-year anniversary that they're celebrating. A little Easter egg that's also really cool is in the 2021 on the case back, there is the letters LVMH. So little Easter egg there for this piece. Like I said, 170 pieces were made of this piece, and the retail price, which I think is important to note, is $52,635 US. So a little higher than other 5711s, but the limited edition and Tiffany signed dial, I think, warrants the slightly higher price. So this watch was going to be available exclusively at Tiffany & Co. Retailers or boutiques in New York, Beverly Hills, and San Francisco. So you can only get them from specific boutiques, and there's only 170 of them. So getting on the allocation list was obviously step one, but just getting allocated one is going to be extremely hard. What Patek Philippe also announced was one of these pieces was going to be auctioned at Phillips New York, which happened a couple of weeks ago in one of their auctions. And this watch auction was really great. They covered everything from vintage to modern, and there were some really nice, there was a 1463 I just fell in love with. But one of these pieces was going to be auctioned off at Phillips New York, which obviously created a whole story. There's only 170, so you've probably, boutiques probably already have people in mind that these watches are going to be allocated to. And so this was an opportunity for the general public to actually, go ahead and be a part of trying to get a hold of one of these watches. So the watch comes up at auction. It's actually lot number 1 of this Phillips New York watch auction, and the watch sells for, if you include you know, all the selling fees and buyer and all of those things, it ended up selling for $6.5 million US dollars. So retail price about 53,000. This one sold at auction for 6.5 million. And you know, when you see a price like that, you know, your brain immediately goes, okay, like, why did it go for that much? You know, you have a retail price that would basically say this is how much it's really worth, or what the retailer has decided that this watch is worth. So I think there's I sort of got it down to four elements. The first is the fact that it's the end of the 5711. The second is the fact that it is a completely it's a real sort of left field move from Patek Philippe to have this really bright dial and all that. The third, I think, is has to do with how hard it is to actually get this piece just in general, and so maybe there's some value in you know the allocation list. I think maybe that's some of the value. And then the fourth, I think, actually, sorry, there's actually 5 reasons. The fourth, I think, has to do with where the money was actually going to. It's going to a charity. But the last reason, I think, is a fairly significant one, has to do with the fact that I think sometimes watch auctions, especially nowadays, has become not so much about, or less about what this watch actually is worth versus I can buy I can outbid you in this auction. So I'll go through all of them. The first one, the end of the 5711. The 5711 is a historical piece that has a lot of significance in watch collecting, but also just in sports watch history. People believe this to be, collectors believe this to be one of the best watches ever produced. And I think there is something to say about, this is the last iteration of the 5711 that will ever be, and I want to have one of the last versions of this watch. So that might have added to the price. The second is, this is I called it left field Patek Philippe, but I think it's not something that you're going to see from Patek Philippe very often. They did the 50th anniversary of the Nautilus, and people were like, I can't believe you created this piece that is too big and has all this writing on the dial. It's just not Patek Philippe, right? And I think bright colors, to me, isn't Patek Philippe either. However, I think it now is it's a very significant sort of move from Patek Philippe. And that sort of move, obviously, which with collectors is like, I want to have that significant change that Patek Philippe decided to do. So I think that might have also added to the price, especially for those sort of die-hard Patek Philippe fans who really follow and love the brand. The third, I'll talk about the sort of sort of the allocation list. 6.5 million versus 53,000. You could say, okay, not getting on the allocation list is worth 6.45 million US dollars. Do I think that's correct? It might be, especially for a 5711 and a limited edition that only was produced in 170, the quantity of 170. Maybe that is the price of the allocation list. I think there's something wrong there. Maybe there's something to look into. However, these pieces should go to true Patek Philippe collectors, right? People who are die-hard Patek Philippe collectors who have shown a relationship with the manufacturer and really love the brand. And so I do think there's definitely in that 6.5 million, there's probably something that says, I don't have to be on the allocation list, but I can perhaps, get a hold of this piece. But when I think about it, someone who's spending 6.5 million, they're definitely on the Patek Philippe allocation list, there's no way that they aren't. They're definitely buying these pieces. They have some sort of interest in Patek Philippe, and so, there's a counter argument for sure for that point. The fourth reason that I mentioned was where the funds were going. 100% of the proceeds of the sale of this watch were actually going to the Nature Conservancy, which was a charity that Tiffany & Co. selected for the proceeds to go to, which I think there is something to say about, I'm bidding on this watch, sure, I really want it, but also it is going to a good cause. So there's something to say about that, 6.5 million about that. It's nice to see that, historical moments in the watch world can also contribute to some sort of good cause in the world, and so that's really nice. But I think the last reason is probably the biggest portion of this 6.5 million US dollars, and that is watch auctions have become more about, there's still an importance on sort of pricing watches to the value of what they are worth, but a lot of the times, and I think a bigger portion of what these watches go for is, I can outbid you on this watch. And I think this might be a good example of it. But what is really cool is it was a New York individual who ended up winning this lot, which I think is really nice, especially because it took place in New York. And so, the watch auction took place in New York. It was a New York winner. So I think that's a really cool sort of result for the watch. But I do think that progressively that's becoming a more important thing. I can buy this watch and I outbid you on it. But I do think it's a combination of all five. I think there's some pieces that come through for all five of the reasons that I've discussed. Yesterday, I guess when I recorded this video yesterday, it was seen that Jay-Z was wearing this watch at a Netflix, or he was wearing one of the Tiffany-Blue 5711s at this Netflix event, and he posted a picture. There was a picture on Instagram of him wearing it, and his caption was, "Sorry watch world, but the GOAT did it again, #new watch alert, call her Tiffany." So I think that was quite interesting, that obviously Jay-Z has one. We now know that there are two that have been sold. We don't know where the other 168 are, so that's kind of exciting to see. Obviously, Jay-Z is a big collector of watches and Patek Philippe, so it makes it makes sense that he was allocated one. Very cool piece, very interesting part of the history of the 5711, of Patek Philippe, of watch collecting, of watch auctions. It goes well beyond sort of any one category, and so that's kind of why I needed some time to sort of digest the news. So really cool event, and I'm glad we were able to cover it on Life on the Wrist. We have written an article for this video, so be sure to head over to lifeonthewrist.com if you want to read our thoughts there. We probably have a little bit more information there as well. You can also check out some of our other articles there if you're interested in reading about watches. If you are new to Life on the Wrist, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you like these types of videos. If you wouldn't mind liking this video, it really does help us out with our YouTube analytics. Let us know in the comment section below what you think about this piece and basically all of the things that it sort of represents. Love to hear your thoughts. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time.